The chain of belief. How religion exploits war and poverty for control and power. Introduction. Throughout history, religion has played a pivotal role in shaping societies, particularly in times of crisis, poverty, and war. Religious beliefs provide individuals and communities with frameworks for understanding their hardships, offering hope, and promising redemption in a life beyond. However, the relationship between religion and these difficult conditions has often been criticized for fostering dependency, submission, and even manipulation. Critics argue that religion, instead of genuinely providing solace, exploits the vulnerable. It presents itself as a comforting solution but simultaneously functions as a system of oppression, mind control, and brainwashing. This essay explores how religiosity tends to increase during periods of poverty and war, arguing that the heightened religiosity during these times is not a result of genuine belief, but rather the outcome of psychological conditioning, fear, and manipulation. We will examine how religion, often through figures like Jesus, Muhammad, and Buddha, uses such times of vulnerability to tighten its grip on individuals, rendering them less capable of critical thought and more susceptible to control. The relationship between poverty, war, and increased religiosity. Poverty and war are some of the most destructive conditions for human existence. In these circumstances, individuals often feel powerless, desperate, and hopeless. The psychological impact of these conditions cannot be overstated. When faced with such adversity, people naturally seek meaning or explanations that help them cope. Religion offers answers, whether through promises of an afterlife, divine justice, or a grand cosmic plan. It provides a narrative that explains suffering, and, in many cases, encourages believers to accept their conditions as part of a larger divine scheme. This sense of purpose helps people endure the unbearable. However, the sharp increase in religiosity during such times is rarely the result of sincere spiritual awakening. Instead, it is more often an expression of psychological and emotional survival mechanisms. As people suffer in conditions of extreme poverty or the chaos of war, they cling to anything that offers hope, which religion readily provides. Yet this process is far from benign. Religious authorities, both historically and in contemporary contexts, capitalize on this vulnerability, using their positions to assert control over populations. This manipulation is subtle but profound, and it exploits the desperation of the people it seeks to dominate. Religion as a tool of oppression. One of the most enduring critiques of religion is its role as a tool of oppression. Karl Marx famously referred to religion as the opium of the people, asserting that it serves to pacify the masses by making their suffering more bearable rather than empowering them to seek tangible change in their material conditions. In this context, religion is not simply a set of beliefs about the divine or the afterlife, but a mechanism by which ruling classes maintain their power over the oppressed. Religions, especially those that promise salvation or paradise after death, often encourage people to endure their suffering in this life without question. They teach that poverty, hardship, and even violence may be part of a divine plan. For instance, Christianity encourages its followers to bear their crosses and assures them that their suffering on earth will be rewarded in heaven. Similarly, in Islam, the concept of sabr, patience, in the face of hardship is lauded, and poverty is often spiritualized, with many texts suggesting that the poor will find greater rewards in the afterlife. While such beliefs may bring comfort to individuals, they also prevent them from critically assessing their social, political, and economic conditions. This creates a perfect environment for the perpetuation of systemic inequality. Rather than questioning why they are poor or oppressed, religious adherents are taught to accept their fate as divinely ordained, thus eliminating any impulse to revolt or demand justice. In this way, religion serves as a form of mental and spiritual sedation, keeping people subservient to those in power. The role of religious figures in mind control and brainwashing. At the heart of most major religions are charismatic figures like Jesus, Muhammad, and Buddha. These figures are revered not only as spiritual leaders, but often as semi-divine or divine beings. While many regard them as sources of moral and ethical wisdom, critics argue that the adulation of such figures is deeply problematic. It fosters a culture of blind obedience and discourages critical thinking. The reverence for these religious figures is a product of centuries of indoctrination, rather than genuine belief or spiritual insight. Consider the figure of Jesus in Christianity. From an early age, children are taught stories of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. They are encouraged to view him not just as a moral teacher, but as the literal Son of God, whose death was a sacrificial act meant to redeem humanity. This narrative is deeply ingrained in believers, so much so that it becomes almost impossible to question it. To challenge the divinity of Jesus or to question the historical accuracy of his life is to risk being ostracized from one's community, or worse, facing eternal damnation. This creates an environment where critical thought is stifled, and belief is enforced through fear. Similarly, in Islam, the figure of Muhammad is considered the final prophet, and questioning his status or his teachings is not only seen as blasphemous but is often punishable by death in certain contexts. This ensures that followers remain loyal and obedient, not because they have critically examined the tenets of their faith, but because they fear the consequences of disbelief. The reverence for these figures is maintained through constant reinforcement, whether through religious texts, rituals, or community practices. The end result is a form of psychological conditioning that makes genuine belief almost impossible. People do not believe in these figures out of a sincere spiritual awakening, but because they have been taught to do so from a young age and because they fear the social and existential consequences of unbelief. Religious rituals as methods of reinforcement and control. Religious rituals such as prayer, fasting, and attendance at places of worship serve not only as expressions of faith but also as tools of control. These rituals are repetitive, often demanding strict adherence to specific rules, and they are designed to reinforce religious beliefs continuously. By engaging in these rituals, individuals reaffirm their faith, making it harder to break free from the mental conditioning imposed upon them. For instance, in Christianity, the act of attending church services and participating in the Eucharist, Holy Communion, serves as a weekly reminder of Jesus' sacrifice and the believer's duty to live according to Christian principles. In Islam, the daily practice of praying 5 times a day serves to constantly remind the believer of their submission to Allah. These rituals are not neutral. They are powerful tools of psychological conditioning. By participating in them regularly, individuals become more entrenched in their belief systems, even when these beliefs may no longer serve their best interests. Moreover, religious rituals often serve as a form of social control. In many societies, participation in religious rituals is seen as a sign of social belonging. To abstain from them is to risk being ostracized or labeled as an outsider. This creates a powerful incentive for individuals to conform, even if their personal beliefs do not align with the religious teachings they are expected to follow. Thus, religious rituals function not only as expressions of faith, but as mechanisms of social control, ensuring that individuals remain obedient to religious authority. The use of fear in religious indoctrination. One of the most effective tools religion employs to control its followers is fear. This fear can take many forms: fear of punishment in the afterlife, fear of divine retribution, or fear of social ostracization. Religions have historically been adept at manipulating this fear to ensure compliance and submission among their followers. The concept of hell, for example, is a powerful motivator in many religions. Christianity, Islam, and other religions have detailed descriptions of hell as a place of eternal suffering, reserved for those who disobey religious laws or fail to accept the faith's central tenets. The fear of such a fate is instilled in believers from a young age, and it serves as a potent psychological tool to prevent people from questioning their faith. Even the mere thought of disbelief can cause anxiety, as the consequences are depicted as unimaginably horrific. This use of fear is particularly evident during times of crisis, such as war or poverty. When people are already in a state of fear due to their material conditions, religious authorities can easily manipulate this fear to increase their control. For instance, religious leaders may claim that suffering in this life is a test from God, and those who remain faithful will be rewarded in the afterlife, while those who doubt or rebel will face eternal damnation. This narrative ensures that even in the face of extreme hardship, individuals remain obedient to religious authority, rather than seeking out practical solutions to their problems. In times of war, religious leaders often frame conflicts as divine battles between good and evil, encouraging people to fight or endure suffering in the name of their faith. This creates a dangerous situation where people are willing to sacrifice their lives not out of genuine belief, but because they have been conditioned to believe that such actions will secure their place in heaven. The fear of divine punishment for failing to comply is a powerful motivator, and it ensures that people continue to fight, even when doing so may not be in their best interests. The psychological impact of religious brainwashing. Religious brainwashing has profound psychological effects on individuals. By instilling fear, guilt, and a sense of unworthiness, religious institutions create psychological barriers that make it difficult for people to think critically about their beliefs. This process often begins at a young age, when children are most vulnerable to suggestion and authority. Many religions teach that humans are inherently sinful or flawed, and that only through obedience to religious teachings can they hope to find redemption. This creates a cycle of guilt and fear, as individuals constantly strive to live up to impossible standards, fearing that failure will result in divine punishment. This psychological conditioning is reinforced through rituals, community pressure, and the constant repetition of religious teachings. Over time, this conditioning becomes deeply ingrained, making it difficult for individuals to break free from their religious beliefs, even when presented with evidence or arguments that contradict those beliefs. This is because religious brainwashing not only affects a person's conscious beliefs, but also their subconscious mind, making it an incredibly powerful tool for controlling large populations. In times of war and poverty, when people are already in a state of psychological distress, this brainwashing becomes even more effective. The fear and uncertainty that accompany these conditions make individuals more susceptible to religious messages, as they desperately seek meaning and hope in the face of overwhelming suffering. Religious authorities, recognizing this vulnerability, use it to tighten their control, ensuring that people remain obedient and submissive. Conclusion: religion has long been a powerful force in human society, particularly in times of crisis, such as poverty and war. While it may offer comfort and hope to individuals facing extreme hardship, it also functions as a tool of oppression, mind control, and brainwashing. Through the use of fear, guilt, and psychological conditioning, religion ensures that individuals remain obedient and submissive, even when doing so is not in their best interests. Figures like Jesus, Muhammad, and Buddha are often held up as symbols of moral virtue, but the reverence for these figures is more a product of psychological conditioning than genuine spiritual belief. Religious rituals and teachings serve to reinforce this conditioning, making it difficult for individuals to think critically about their faith. In times of war and poverty, religiosity tends to increase, not because people are experiencing spiritual awakenings, but because they are more vulnerable to manipulation. Religious authorities exploit this vulnerability to assert control, ensuring that people remain obedient and submissive. As a result, religion continues to function as a powerful tool for maintaining the status quo, preventing people from seeking out practical solutions to their problems and ensuring that they remain subservient to those in power. Ultimately, while religion may provide comfort in times of hardship, it is also a mechanism of control, designed to keep people obedient and submissive. The increase in religiosity during times of poverty and war is not a sign of genuine belief, but rather a reflection of the psychological manipulation and conditioning that religion employs to maintain its power. In this sense, religion can be seen as a form of oppression, mind control, and brainwashing, rather than a source of true spiritual enlightenment.